Here.
Fisher.
Here.
Swallow. Here.
Discussion and action to recommend the lowest best bid for the Alva Parks and Recreation synthetic turf infield project to the AEVA for approval.
I think, this is the second time going out for bid on this. You've received the bid packets and the evaluation of the bids. We've had, I might have missed it, but I think at previous meetings you guys had discussed being able to go out and look at some of the fields that have been done by the low bidder in order to make a decision, and so we can do that. But I want to try to have discussion today. However, I also want you guys to know that and we've got Doug, he's with Sprint Turf, that if you get to the point through all the questions that you have, and if we talk about all the numbers and all of that, if you get to the point that you want to go ahead and take action and make the recommendation, you are able to do so the way the agenda is written, or you can table it, take some time to go look at some fields. We do have September 29th is the first 15-day due date. If we extend it another 15 days, that would put us at October 13th, and that's absolute drop dead. We have to approve something by then, or we'll have to go through this process again. So those are kind of the constraints that are upon you as a board. And I thought I would probably right now, just give Doug an opportunity to kind of go over the particulars of the bid. I might also, though, say that all of the adds and deducts, we may not need to go into very much specificity on all of those, but the board members may have questions about some of them. At that, I guess I'm going to, unless the board has something else, I'm going to turn it over to Doug to kind of go over his bid.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me here, and we actually have a few closer. I know that I got a call from Lonnie Colby yesterday that we did Oklahoma Christians baseball infield only. I think he's going on his third year on playing on it, and Lonnie gets a lot of play. But I think Lonnie called me up and said, "Hey, someone's going to come look at our field." And I said, "Awesome." And he was bragging about the color. And so I would be excited if you'd go and look at that, because I really like the color scheme in that. It's very different, but it looks very natural. I'm really here just to answer questions. We do have a job a lot closer. We did 4 fields for the city of Pratt, Kansas, at Green Sports Complex. Now their infield clay fiber is a little bit of an upgrade than what was specified on this particular job. But it's our Shark's Tooth slip film, and it's awesome because and I'm just to give you a little quick background. I've been in the turf business for about 16 years. I've worked with several different companies. In fact, I was the director of baseball operations for one of the big boys. And then after they were bought by a German private equity firm, I have nothing against Germans, I just know what happens when German private equity firms take over businesses. Sales commissions go down, and so anyway. So I left there and I went to a company in Kansas that when I went to them, they were talking about, "Hey Doug, we want to go turf neutral." Or he said, "Let's go visit all the places, all the manufacturers." So we went and visited everybody. And at the conclusion, they asked me, they said, "What do you think we should do?" And I said, "I think we ought to be turf neutral and work with all of them. It makes sense because then you become the expert." So they agreed with me, and we worked with everybody, Sprint Turf, AstroTurf, Field Turf, everyone. And we visited all their plants, so I got to know everybody's product. So it's good in that way. But a year after that, they said, "Doug, we're going to go 100% with Field Turf." And that's when I decided I need to look at other partners. And at the time, it was during COVID, close to COVID. And I met with Sprint Turf, and Sprint Turf, I really like their story. It's American made, American owned. They make their own fibers in Dadeville, Alabama. And they only make their premium fibers. They only make it with the C8 resin on the monofilament. And the slit film, I was surprised because I didn't know anything about Sprint Turf. Sprint Turf used to have a model of, they would hire distributors throughout the country and work with distributors. And those distributors in Oklahoma and Kansas they wanted to just white label Sprint Turf's product and put their name on it. So we worked with ATG for a long time until 2015, and then we parted ways and decided to go manufacture direct. So everything that we do, we're manufacturer direct. We do everything in-house. We have over Turf, 200 installation crews. Now that's countrywide, the entire U.S., and we only work in the U.S. And we have do our own base constructions. We have certified sports field builders on staff. And I was just real impressed with the American-made, American-owned thing, because there's a lot of companies that aren't. They come across as we do everything, but by the same token, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, you don't know that they're buying Chinese fibers and this, that, and the other. So I was really excited to come aboard. I've been with them. This is going on my 4th year. I've been able to help with their development of their baseball product as well, baseball and softball product. So anyway, that's the short story long. And again, I'm just here to answer questions.
I have a question. So in your bid, is there a Brock pad?
Yes.
Is that necessary?
I don't mind it.
Okay.
And this is what's specified, Brock pad. Now, I think Brock does a good job. I think primarily the reason why they did the Brock pad because they wanted an alternative infield to Brock fill. And have you seen the Brock fill?
Vaguely.
It's awesome. This is a mess. I mean, this is a real mess. This is a sample that I put together, and whenever it gets tipped over, it gets a little messy. But rock fill essentially is just wood chip fibers. So they're going to put sand, and then they'll top coat it with this wood chip fibers. I did it at Tulsa Public Schools for their stadium field at Will Rogers. And when the school got it in, Mick is the athletic director. Mick said, man, we never thought it would be this cool. Because they love it. And it is designed to cool. It's a cooling agent.
So I've been told that it'll float and blow.
On the Brock field, not necessarily. That's for the green play. Green play is bad. And I'll be the first one to admit, green play's, it's a little bit different. It's cork and coconut. And yes, the coke. Can we get this thing open? I'm weak today. I can't open it. Anyway, it says labeled cork coconut. That's a little different product. It's coconut husks and cork. And yes, when it rains, that will float to the sidelines. Because we did a field in Norman, it's a nightmare. Because it floats to the sidelines. And the other thing about organics that you need to understand about organic infield is eventually they will break down. So that's the other issue with organics. But the Brock fill we work with, I think it's only been around for about 5 years. But my boss has worked with it for the last 5 years. He was from Boston, and they did a lot of Brock fill fields, and I love it. Now,
do you have to top fill after a few years?
You know, they say you don't, but in the high wear spots, like the slide into second, you're going to have to fill that and brush it in, and they have a special broom for that. I typically recommend doing a Grandy broom. It's a plastic brush that you can buy. You guys have a Menards here? Have you? Well, anyway, you can get it at Menards for $15. But you can order it online, those Grandy brushes. You can order online from Walmart or Home Depot. They're like $45, but Menards has them for $15. But yes, you're going to have to fill. The other wear spots is the right-hand batter's box, not the left. the catcher's box, and the pitcher's mound. So the slide into second and around first base, because not so much for a softball field, but more for the baseball fields, because the pickoff's at first and sliding back to first and whatnot. So yes, you'll have to maintain, and they usually leave attic stock of the Brockville so that you can fill in those areas. Because the right-handed batter's box, whether it's rubber or organic fill, rubber, sand, or Brockville, or natural cool, whatever you choose, you're going to have to maintain those particular areas. And, of course, the entry and exit in the dugout. That's another
With
high risk.
rain and wind, which is better, the rubber or the Brockville?
Rain and wind.
Like if you get rain and you get a bunch of rain and a bunch of wind, is one going to stay in place better than the other?
I think they're both about the same. However, with rain, it's really good for this, because I'm kind of weird when it comes to baseball and testing and heat reduction, because I don't believe all the BS, because there's a lot of BS in the turf world. But when we put the field in Tulsa, I took a heat gun and measured, and I went during this, it was during the summer, beginning of the summer, I picked a hot day, and I shot a gun on the turf with the Brockville in it without any water on it. And it was bearable, let's put it that way. And then when you put water to it, now Brock, their big pitch is, you don't need water, you don't need water, you don't need water. But when you do get water, when you get a rain, you're going to see a 20-degree, I measured it, and it's a 20-degree difference in temperature. That's significant. So, not so much if you get rain in the heat of the summer with rubber sand product, it'll turn into much, I did OU's field. And I noticed when they built that field and converted it from natural grass to synthetic, the architect put in these water cannons to water the entire field. And I'm like, so after the job was done, I went to Jeff, the facilities guy, and I said, why did you guys put the water cannons in again? He said, for rubber management. I'm like, what? A lot of people say if you water a field that has rubber and sand in the heat of the summer, it'll cool it down. No, it does the opposite. Turns it into a sauna. So they've never used those water cannons. They've only turned those water cannons on twice at OU since they put it in. And that's to show architects how it works. That's it. So when it rains in the summertime, when it's real hot, it's going to turn, and you have to play right after that, it'll turn into it'll be a little steamy, like a steam bath. So a little bit different between those two products.
So just to clarify, Brockville does not float.
Brockville does not float. In fact, it locks in really well. I've only worked with it, and it's only been down 2 years in Tulsa. It's the first one I've ever done, and I love it. But by the same token, my boss, who lives in Houston now, I think he was at the bid opening. He's worked with it for 5 years. He's done a lot of fields with it, and it's held up really well, even over 5 years. I mean, they didn't have to add anything to it.
What did you put down at Pratt?
Pratt is rubber and sand. We tried to show them the green play, because the green play was what we had at the time. And they chose not to go with that, which I'm kind of thankful, because the cork and coconut, I determined and seen with my own eyes, it actually disappears over time, because it's required to have watering. The green clay product is required to have water, and you have to water it on a regular basis. So if you get rain on a regular basis, you're good.
So what's going to be the number one or less maintenance for us? What field would you recommend to be the less without maintenance?
Between the Brockville and the rubber and the sand, I have no problem with either one. You're still going to have those maintenance areas like I talked about earlier.
How is the Brockville? Because I just know when you're playing on this rubber, is in football, I mean, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be in your helmet, everywhere. Does the Brockville work the same way where you pretty much get coated on it or not?
Actually, I asked that question from the Tulsa. This is from a football perspective, not baseball.
Baseball, yeah.
Because baseball, you're doing a lot of head first slide into second base and whatnot. And yes, there's going to be some kick out, but for the most part, as far as locking it in, it usually takes a little bit of time, a few rains, from rain showers to lock it in, and it does really well. In fact, I can only attest to what my bosses talked to me about Brockville, because after I saw it, I'm like, oh gosh, tell me more. What do you know about baseball?
What is the other turf there that you've got?
Oh, this was the wild color that I did at Oklahoma Christian. This is just the green area,
Okay.
and this is the wild color. I mixed the brown with the tan, because the other thing is colors make a big difference. If you do a tan field, which I don't recommend, but you can. If you do a tan field, it's a little cooler than a dark brown field or a terracotta red field. Red, like we did at Midwest City. That's Brockville. This is what we did at Midwest City Sports Complex. That's terracotta red. Those are a little hotter. And the other thing about the red, the bad thing about the red and the tan is they kind of, when you have a rubber sand infield, rubber has a tendency at home plate, second base, in the high wear spots, the pitcher's mound around first base, that black wants to bleed through and it's ugly. So the dark brown hides it well. So does this. This is the brown with the tan. It does both things. Number one, it gives a little different color, and it's a little bit cooler. Now, how much cooler? 4 degrees, maybe. It's not that significant, but every little bit helps.
What's the benefit of the pad? Other than does it make it softer, or what's the benefit to having it?
Well, they require it when you do organics, because the rubber allows you to have a better shock attenuation. Not softer, doesn't make the field softer, it just makes it safer, if you will. So does the pad. The advantage of the pad is, I did a field in the University of San Francisco, and I went out and witnessed the installation, because at the time I was the baseball guy, and they did a pad. And what I notice about pads is it kills that big old hop. That chopper in front of the plate, it absolutely absorbs it. So I'm sitting there with the fungo, and they got this rock pad underneath it, and I'm trying to hit a chopper to third base or first base, and it wouldn't get but like 5 or 6 feet up. So you don't have that high chopper anymore. That's one thing that pads do. It absorbs that impact to keep the ball down lower instead of being real bouncy. Make sense?
Yeah.
So if you're doing a complete baseball field, infield and outfield, would you put a pad underneath the outfield as well?
I usually go a little taller pile height for the outfield, and you can.
Well, I'm just asking, would
You can.
You wouldn't need a pad then on the outfield?
I don't typically do. Unless, what are you going to use the outfield for?
What do you mean, what do you use it for?
Are you going to use it for other sports?
Oh, no.
Okay, just baseball and softball only. Okay, so in that regard, no, I wouldn't worry about a pad in the outfield. And we typically go like 50-50 rubber to sand. And I wouldn't necessarily, this is kind of expensive. There's other organic products that you might save a little bit on.
So you use a different fill on the outfield?
Yeah, I'd go 50-50 sand rubber. I mean, you only got 3 guys out there. They can suck it up in the heat.
They get lots of air.
Because I've seen some fields where they do the organic in the infield and rubber sand in the outfield. But you're only playing baseball on it, so that's actually the case. You're only going to have 3 guys out there. But on a football field or a soccer field, if you're going to use it for that, then I don't mind doing rubber and sand, but I would increase the ratios of rubber. Typically on a football field and a softball or a soccer field, we'll do 70% rubber to 30% sand to give that safety for the players, for tackle.
So the makeup of the turf on the infield, is it a different makeup of turf for the softball as opposed to baseball? Or is it the same?
I think it's the same. I think the architect required a
So
dual fiber.
would you recommend it being two different types? I mean, one that plays like dirt, one that plays like grass, or?
Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I will. We were wanting, if we get the contract, we're going to offer an upgrade on the infield, on the infield fiber, because I know our shark tooth is extremely durable. We did a city field in McPherson, Kansas. Did the city field at Pratt. Now Pratt's only been down 3 years, but they have yet believe it or not, on the baseball pitching mound where the high school plays, they have not replaced any inserts or anything on the mound, which is almost unheard of. So
They don't throw very hard up there.
they really don't. It's like 70 miles, 75, 80 miles an hour. That's all I say. But yeah, so we would offer an upgrade for that. Now, in the green area, I do like what the architect spec for the dual fiber product. I like that. I think it looks more like grass and it plays more like grass. So, now, if I don't know who's going to be going to Oklahoma Christian. Oklahoma Christian has the upgrade on both the infield grass and the infield clay area. It has that product, so you won't see it does have the dual fiber on the aprons, the green on the aprons that's in front of the dugout. But it does have the dual fiber blend on the aprons, skirts.
So I know maybe it's an alternate bid that we asked about, maybe putting in, I'm going to call it an oversized drainage system in, so that if we decided to turf the outfield at some point in time, you have any recommendations on that, if that's something you would or would not do, you have your choice? I mean, thinking that we might, we want to eventually turf the outfields.
Yeah. If you're going to eventually turf the outfields, there's two things I would do, but again, this is just one man's opinion. First of all, I would do the drainage system now, the bigger drains, because essentially, I think it was only like, I think our ad was like 51,000. So all that is it's the same labor cost stays the same. It's just putting in bigger pipe to allow for more water. So I would do that if I were you.
So will those drains run in the foul territory, or are they going to run out through the outfield? Or, I mean, when you put the original infield drainage in, will those drains go down the foul lines, or are they going to go out through center field? Or?
Yeah, typically what I would do based on what I've seen of your facility was I'd pull them out to the side, past the dugouts, past the buildings. And then because you have space in between, because you got a clover. And so you got a space in between. So I'd connect it and then run it through that way. Now there's the issue with the sidewalk on, I believe, one of them. Just is it the softball team that has the sidewalk going in? They both do.
Yeah.
But only one sidewalk in the fourplex. The other areas in between the fields don't have concrete sidewalk.
Well, they're pretty much all concrete in between the dugouts.
Correct.
Yeah, it just doesn't go all the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Not all the way up. But yeah, I'd take it to the outside of the fence and then run it out.
Because I think the main question was is if we did do the turf the outfields, nothing was going to get tore up with that drainage system, correct?
Right. And the other recommendation, I said there's two recommendations that I probably change after contract, is I would not go with a concrete curb on the outside fly arc in the field of play. What I would do, it's a little less expensive. I would use a 2x6 synthetic wood, pin it on both sides. And that way, when you do go and change out, can we come out and rip out the concrete? Yeah, sure. But it would be a lot easier if your plan is to put turf in the outfield on all those fields, is to do a 2x6 synthetic instead of a 12x6 concrete with a nailer board to it. I would just do a 2x6. Then you'll wrap the turf around the 2x6 synthetic, nail it, and then when you go, you just pull the nailer boards out. You can reuse those nailer boards at another area when you go and put in the outfields. That's just my humble opinion. I've done about 3 different fields, now 5 different fields in which they've done that. One of them is in Augusta, Kansas, and they did, because they were thinking the same thing. Hey, someday we want to put turf in the outfield. Okay, we'll do a 2x6 synthetic. And it's held up really well. You haven't seen any leaning, because you're going to pin it every 5 or 6 feet on both sides to make sure that it doesn't move. And once you get the rock put in, and you got the rock on one side and the fill on the other, holding it together.
You guys want to hear numbers? So what I put in front of you is not necessarily a recommendation, kind of the base bid, plus the rock fill along with the money that we've got available. We do have presently, from donation received last fiscal year, plus the CD that we cashed last month, I think. August 10th, I believe, when that one was due, and we cashed it to keep out. And then the other CD that we have, as of today, the balance between all 3 of those, $842,051. We budgeted to use $700,000 from fund balance, and we're presently sitting at 842. So we've got a plus 142 available from fund balance. The next area is what we anticipated for income this year. We anticipated for this project another $600,000 for donations. We have, and I gave you a copy of Northwestern's email, but essentially their pledge is to go 121, I think 121.4. 121,406 on towards the expenses related to Northwestern softball, which puts us at $721,406 for anticipated contributions toward the project this year. Making total available funds $1,563,457. We budgeted a total expense of $1.4 million for the project, and if you take the base bid plus the contingency and the logos for Northwestern softball, that puts us right at that $1.4 million. We, as a board, you guys have the option. You have some other budgeted capital outlay with $140,000 for the parking lot. That if you decide not to do the parking lot, you can add that to what you want to do with the turf project. And if you wanted to do, so that would take you up to about $1.7 million in available funds. But where you sit right now, you've got 1.563 to do $1.4 million worth of project. So the drainage that was talked about, that's a $51,000 add. The Brockville, that's $222,000 add. So you can kind of see that if you did the Brockville and didn't do the drainage, that's just what I put on here as just a jumping off point. But if you did the Brockville and didn't do the drainage, you're about $53,000. Yeah, about $53,000 short for what you'd need, and so we'd either need to pull that from other projects or hope,
So our total available funds, if we'd add the 140 to the 1563?
1.7.
Yeah. I was just making sure that we added
Yeah.
that's what we had.
So
So at the 1.7, if we went with
if you went with the
Base
Brockville
bid
and the drainage
and the drainage,
and took the
contingency,
balance out of the
It
parking
comes-
lot,
it comes to 1668, which would be under that 17 if we use the parking lot money.
it would.
Doug, you mentioned, you might want to change the specs on the turf for the softball, is that right?
I would upgrade it.
So what are you guessing that would cost additionally?
We weren't going to charge anything.
What else do you want to upgrade?
I'm glad you asked. I actually forgot to talk about this a little bit. Okay, on Brockville, I think it's a good product, but Brockville requires a pad. We have another product that we did at Panorama Park in Colorado Springs. Are we very close to that? 3 hours?
7 hours.
Yeah.
7 hours is on. So this is another really interesting product. This is made of coir. And I like, believe me, I like the Brockville. I really do. But when you turn it upside, it doesn't lock in quite like this stuff. So this is natural cool. It's all it is the same material that you make rope out of. And it just locks in a lot better. Our salesman in Colorado said, "Man, you ought to see this stuff. It locks in." I haven't seen it. We're doing it at a soccer field in McPherson, Kansas, and we're going to start that project October 1st. But
Was it like hemp or?
yeah,
I
well,
have a
no,
bag. I have
it's not him.
The last guy that came up, I have a bag of that in the office.
Yeah, and so I think I have, but I'll pass it around if you want to look at it.
So does that require the pad too, or
It
no?
does not. We've done several fields in Alabama and the South, and it is cooling, but again, it's cooler if you get a rain before.
Does this break
It's
down?
okay if little junior gets
It-
hot.
Well, it's like rope. It's the same product that's made out of rope.
Does it
And
break
rope,
down?
no, and it doesn't float.
Break the sweat.
Because I was talking to the salesman in Colorado, he said right after they put it in, we had a torrential downpour and nothing moved. The other thing I like about this product, that's it. Where'd you get that? Oh, I gave it to you?
No, the last guy did.
That's the last one. Oh, yeah.
The guy that's coming is back there.
What about the playability of this stuff?
It plays fast.
What about the bounce?
The bounce stays down because all we're doing is sand and that. Now, in the outfield, you can do it, but you're going to have a pad. I wouldn't worry about the outfield with that because it's kind of expensive.
So,
But I just don't want, in the infield, most people want the ball to stay down and play fast. Most people want that. Very few. Pete, the former coach at OU, he told me, he said, "Whitey, I want this thing to play as slow as humanly possible." I'm like, what? He was about the only coach. Who's the other one? There was someone else. Oh, Skip Johnson's talking like he wants stuff to play slow. But those are the only two coaches I know. Most everybody else wants to keep the ball down and play fast.
so with that natural cool, what's it called, natural cool?
Yeah, natural.
No pad.
No pad.
It's
In the infield.
So it's going to be a little cheaper?
Yes, a little bit.
So I have an acquaintance up on the study that's in that lake department.
Yeah.
And he told me that seen it happen. He said, if you get a raise, it'll close.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
He said, unless you have a full-time crew on hand to keep that maintained and brush back, pull back, so it'll float.
Good to know.
The safety of
And
this.
where did they put the Brockville at?
I think the softball field.
That was green play. I did that. No, you're right. They did the softball field at Brockville and the outfield only. I'm sorry, I was thinking about, I did
Well, I
their,
don't know which part, but he said.
yeah, I did the soccer field, the sidelines of the soccer field. They did a Brock pad with the green play stuff, cork coconut.
You know, I've also had another, one of your competitors say that you don't need the Brock pad unless you're laying turf on concrete. And,
You don't need the Brock pad to use Brockville?
well, no, he just said he did not need the Brock pad.
Oh, okay.
He said that was just in the bid specs, 'cause that, they bid it because that's what the specs, but he said, you don't need a pad. He said, we don't, he told me that even on football fields, they don't put a pad underneath it.
Correct. That is correct. Different architects expect different things. And I would agree with them. The fields at Pratt and the baseball fields we did at McPherson, the baseball field we did at Oklahoma Christian, we did not put a pad. We just did rubber and sand.
So you could do the higher grade product, you're saying, don't put the pad in and you're at the same amount or less money.
Less.
Yes.
Less money.
Yes. Yeah, because you're spending 120 grand on the pad for all 8 fields, just for the infields.
Is there a safety difference?
Absolutely. And that's
Which
one
one's
of the, that is what's, on a baseball, well, if you're playing football on it and you're getting tackled and stuff like that, in baseball and softball, that doesn't happen too much. Yeah, you slide. Yeah, sometimes you might get hit and fall down and hit your head on it. But without a doubt, having a pad is quote unquote safer. But for an infield, there's no tackling. There's collisions, but there's no tackling.
It's no different than what we got now.
Yeah.
Safety less.
Correct. Oh, gosh. Yeah, don't even get me started. On natural grass, they don't have any standards. It can be as hard as you want, but, you know, on turf fields, they're required. On football fields and soccer fields. Not baseball infields. Typically, the architects haven't pulled that out yet, and engineers haven't pulled that out yet, but you really don't need a G-Max in the baseball world. In fact, most of your college coaches want to play hard and fast. So there is no quote-unquote G-Max. But yes, pads are safer, so as far as G-Max.
I need Drew.
And everybody know what G-Max is? Okay, it's like the dash of your car. It's firm and it's hard, right? But it's designed that if you get in a wreck and your head hits it, it helps absorb that impact to prevent you from cracking your skull. Same type of thing for putting pads down. And your G-Max, so at G-Max, let me just give you reference. Concrete G-Maxes at 350. The standard for artificial turf is 200 or less. That way you have proper shock attenuation, not softness. Vertical deformation is different than G-Max. It's just how it disperses energy when you make impact. So safe, according to the ASTM standard, is 200 or less. NCAA Division I, in their artificial turf fields, they require 170 or less. In high school, I've talked to a couple of people that are on board with the high school, yada, yada, yada. And they say they want to move to 150 G-Max or less. Everything's moving down. They want fields to be a lower G-Max is coming, we think. So I think it's probably driven by the pad people. But they want, but pads really are, it's an interesting feel on a pad. It'll still feel firm, like the dash on a car, but it's safer. So, the other thing that we've done to make fields safer, we were the first ones to come out with 100% rubber on our baseball, or on our football and soccer fields. And we've done hundreds of fields in Indiana and Michigan. And a lot of them were 100% rubber. And those fields, there's something to all rubber fields. They're lasting like 15 and 16 years. There's no sense.
So, you just brought that up, these fields aren't going to last forever.
Right.
Okay, so in your experience, when you replace the carpet, you have to replace that pad too? If there's a pad underneath it?
Depends on the pad. Okay.
If there's a pad, will you have to replace the pad too?
If I was a Brock salesman, I'd say, yeah, you're going to have to replace about 15% of the field. However, it depends on how the installations, a lot of times glue can slip in. I've seen it to where 40% of your pad's going to be replaced. The other problem that I see with Brock, I love Brock. They have availability. They're a terrific pad company. They have like 3 or 4 different kinds. They have several different thicknesses and whatnot. This is the least expensive of them all. It doesn't carry a 25-year warranty. But the problem with these pads, you're not supposed to keep it in the sun for longer than an hour. So they show up and they show up, no, seriously, they show up and they have it covered. So when you go and replace the field with a Brock pad, you have to take the turf. You can do it 2 ways. The installer can come and take one roll out and then put the new roll on right away. But most of them take the whole field out, eliminate it, and then they have to restack all the Brock pad, put them in a stack and cover it. And then reinstall it to put it back in. So that's the disadvantage that Brock doesn't talk about.
So when you do have to replace that turf, I guess there's a machine that's going to come suck all the whatever the fill is up. You're going to be able to save part of it.
We don't know, but from what I've heard about Brockville, I've heard Brockville does really well, but they've only been doing it for 5 years. They haven't replaced it.
You'll suck all that up, and then you'll have some that to reuse, or just roll it up in the car.
I've heard a couple of different ways on that one. Because it's organic, probably not. Probably not going to reuse it. Rubber, can you reuse it? Yes. You can suck out the rubber, separate the rubber from the sand, and then reuse the rubber. Usually they put that on the bottom layer of the new turf, and then cap it with new rubber. So, excellent question.
In my opinion, I just don't see the benefit to having a pad on the softball and baseball field.
For the infields.
Yeah.
It just is a specs.
Yeah.
Right? It is in specs.
And then you can't get Brockville without the pad.
I would bet you Northwestern still doesn't have that. You think so?
No, they don't.
No, Texas.
The baseball? They don't.
They don't
So
have it.
is the pad in the base spec or is the pad in the Brockville spec?
In the Brockville spec.
It's not in the base spec.
I don't think so.
I texted Bowen, he said that Northwestern still has held up better than most that they play on. Its playability is good or better than where they play. So, that's just a reference.
Yeah, have you gone to look at it?
I mean, I played on it, but I haven't.
Oh, did you?
No, I didn't play on it, but my
He's
kids
walked
play
on
on
it.
it. I've had baseball practice on it, but I haven't been on it for a few years.
Yeah. And it's held up pretty well. The only thing I don't like is that everybody's requiring these. This is, again, I'm not sprint turf. I'm talking as a baseball guy. The Velcro inserts. I think they require them on this. Did they not?
I think so.
I think Velcro inserts were required.
For the batter's boxes?
Yeah. Batter's box, catcher's box, and whatnot. I thought it was.
You did do Velcro at college building.
It says a set of replacement.
No, they did Velcro, and that's what the point I was gonna bring out. I don't care for the Velcro because when you bring in a new piece of turf with that the heavy thatch stuff, and we haven't even talked about thatch versus non-thatch, it takes a while for the rubber to settle in, and those batter's boxes and the catcher's box are all Velcroed in, and you can replace them. That's convenient. That way y'all can take care of your own. I've seen where they slide into home head first, and the insert rolls up on them, and kids get injured. So I think there's a liability. That's my personal opinion. What?
The only thing it says is just replacement panels, furnished aid replacement panels, but it doesn't say how they're down.
I do not like that right-hand batter's box, and I know it's the most heavily used.
So how did you attach it?
I glue it.
Glue it?
And then have the inserts, again, I'm getting away from spec here, have the inserts made, but when they need to be replaced, cut them and glue them. Because that, to me, it's a lot safer. And I've also seen other companies, it drives me nuts, they do Velcro at first base to handle the highway. They do a Velcro piece at second base, slide into second, and a slide in third, and I'm like, why would you put Velcro in the field of play? I just think that it's a disaster waiting to happen. It'll be fine for a couple, 3 years. I'm just not a big fan. Now, with regard to the mound, I think it's necessary.
But we're having.
But you guys, then it's not necessary.
Except for softball.
Right,
Yeah.
it's not necessary.
Yeah, and then with the softball, a lot of those, besides the college field, most of them are gonna pitch from a different distance, and we'll have the pitching.
That nylon
Yeah.
carpet with
Yeah.
the rubber, oh, that's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, so
I
that'll
love
help those areas too.
Yeah, so
Trying to
you don't
find
need inserts in the
Yeah,
Little League fields or the softball fields, but you'll need them in the baseball field because you're having a permanent mound there.
no,
No.
they're all
That's going to be
They're all portable because we've got our different base stanchions that we can.
okay.
Yeah,
Awesome. Oh, man.
yeah.
Yeah, thank God.
So on the newer one, is there, I must have missed, is there any place that you put that in that has been used that we could reference?
What do you mean?
The pool play?
It's natural pool
Oh,
stuff.
natural.
I think the closest one is Panorama Park in Colorado Springs. Well, McPherson, but we're not going to be done until December. There's some in Alabama. Yeah, I don't have any in my area.
That's
I'm
probably
sorry.
something, well, I guess, like I say, you can make a decision on the field at a later date, but
Right.
not if you're gonna go with the rock field, got your side down, so.
Yeah, and then you're at different elevations.
So, so what we can approve is basically as things have been bid. We can't today, and Drew, jump in here when you think it's appropriate, but we can't approve moving forward with a recommendation that he suggested today. We can't approve anything like that today. But what we can approve is anything that was in the base or an add or a deduct and the alternates that are, whatever, 13 of them. And, if you're willing to forego other projects, you've got $1.7 million. So,
So what you're saying is if we wanna use that natural fuel, we can't do it,
we can't approve that today.
so how do we go about changing it?
It would have to be a change.
And I don't know if that would be a change order to the base or if it would be, Drew, we've got an alternate that's for Brockville.
Right, yeah.
And in some ways, I feel like that is an alternate to Brockville. So if we approve the Brockville alternate and do a change order later, I don't know if we can
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but the other
Okay.
thing that you could do is you could do a couple of fields. You don't have to do them all. And, you know what I mean? You know, your two, 4 high profile, 2 on softball, 2 on baseball.
You're saying with the Brockville?
Yeah,
Yes, and
with
the
Brockville or the natural cool. Hell, you could do 2 on Brockville and 2 on natural cool. And then the other 4 would be Robertson. I mean, I'm just. I'm sorry, I'm probably just confused.
I kind of like the idea of going with the natural cool on all of them.
Doesn't require a pad.
It seems to say, you know, we're gonna have wind.
You got state contract pricing?
What we can do is if you guys want to choose us as a contractor, then we can do a deduct after the contract. Or do you want to see the deduct before?
Well, I mean,
Compared
if we
to
do that, we'd have to decline the bid, I think. Is that?
Sorry. Then I'd go with Brockville.
Can we accept the base bid and then do an upgrade change order after the fact?
Accept everything,
But if we're not spending more money, we're really
So
not
it's
upgrading.
not gonna cost
It's
anything.
not gonna cost any more money.
so, but
It's not gonna cost any more than the Brock.
then the Brockville, is what you're saying, right?
If we do the Brockville as an alt, we accept Brockville as an alt.
Yeah, and then you
Then-
switch to the natural cool, and if we're going less, I don't see why that'd be a problem, 'cause we're spending less money.
But if we did a base bid and no alt, then it would be.
I think if we do that, we have to be willing to accept the Brockville as is.
And then make a change.
And then we have to determine if we're violating competitive bidding practices to change that, because the natural pool was not bid.
Yeah.
So, and I think we would need Drew to weigh in on that. So if you approve that alternate for the Brockville, you're approving the Brockville, and then if it's legal to go to natural pool, then that's what you do as a change order. But I can't tell you.
But our
Secretary.
base bid, I mean, no matter if we went with Brockville or rubber, I mean, we are still gonna pick that base bid with the lowest one that we have. So like, so what I'm saying is that that alternate, even if someone was lower on that number, on that alternate for Brockville or for the natural pool, it still wouldn't change our minds on who would chose.
No, base bid would still be lower.
Right.
The base bid would still be lower. There's nothing wrong with the base bid. That's why
Right.
I'd like want someone else. My logic is the same as yours,
Okay.
but we're talking about state law.
Yeah, I mean, we're a member of AEPA, which is a buying co-op or tips. So we do have a co-op.
It's like, Ella's said that whatever they do is under state contract, and so we wouldn't even have to go out for bid if we chose Ella's. With Tops.
Yeah, through tops.
Alcohol purchase.
And
Oh,
Hellas,
okay,
Hellas
yeah.
is the only
State
vendor
contract,
on
yeah.
tops. They're the only vendor on tops.
Right. And, you know, you can see bidding apples to apples, Ella's is, what, $500,000 higher than Sprint Turf. So, I mean, I would feel like that we're probably okay to be able to do the add alternate for the Brockville, add alternate for the drainage. The drainage would be, there probably wouldn't be any recommendation on drainage other than what you bid, correct? And then substituting product on the Brockville should
I've got a question though.
an okay change order.
Do we need to discuss the big baseball field? Because wouldn't that be a deduct?
No, not doing the
Doing or not
alternate to
doing?
move the fence
Correct.
would change the size of the infield on the baseball field. Right now, I don't think we can ask you to commit to what a deduction would be if we change the size of an infield. And I mean.
Oh, that is an alternate, isn't it? The fence.
The fence is an alternative. What would happen is if we don't move the fence, it's gonna be a smaller infield.
Yeah.
It's not, it's because we won't go with 90-foot.
Oh, you want?
No, we'll just go with 70, which will match the other three.
So it'll only be 15,000 square feet roughly, instead of 28,000 square feet.
So it's about half the size.
And you say about 9,000 square feet.
So what would the size of those T-ball fields be?
Which one?
What would you guess the infield on a T-ball field is? Square footage.
Oh, those are small. Those are easily 10,000. It depends.
You saw the ones over there. You know those little fenced-in areas behind that northwest
Yeah,
field?
usually I did want to, oh God, where was it?
But I think that's
Enid?
even smaller than like a.
We did T-ball field, and I think it was only 10,000 square feet. They're small.
Yeah. So basically maybe swap some square footage off for that. You know, if we make that baseball field smaller, use that to maybe do one of those T-ball fields.
No. Staying out of that.
All you have to do is just say,
Just shake your head. That sounds like a great idea.
I agree. I think we ought to trip them all right now. Let's go.
Does that represent it fairly, Drew?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, if you approve the Brockville, you may not get the natural pool. If you approve the base bid, we may do a change order on time, days, because there's a project construction time frame this bid. You might do a change order on the number of days to complete if you want to pursue a different product.
so can we approve the base bid and then put it back out to bid for what we want the bill to be? If we only want bid on it, nobody else is going to bid.
Does anybody else have that?
Yeah. Natural pool.
That natural pool?
But I'm just saying they're not.
Nobody else would, Drew, that's right. If we approve that, nobody else will bid that alternate, because they're not gonna bid that alternate unless they got the whole job, you know.
Probably, but I think you probably still have to bid it.
Right,
But yeah,
right,
nobody,
right,
I mean, you would assume that nobody else would bid it.
In Oklahoma, are you not allowed, I don't think you're allowed to sole source that.
You have to invest in gas.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I know in Kansas, they you buy a co-op in Kansas and Oklahoma, but I don't think you're supposed to sole source that. I don't know.
I tell you what,
We need an attorney.
I tell you what we can do, because this isn't a final decision anyway. If you wanted to do both and instruct staff or the mayor and legal counsel to get the answers before it goes in front of the ADA, we can do that. We can for sure have that done.
What's the time frame on that, before it goes to the ADA?
Well, it's at least 48 hours.
Okay.
We'll have to hold a special meeting to get it published.
Yes.
Post.
I'm just trying to see if I can do that.
Because I
Yeah, we'll get it.
can get with the municipal league on that, and Drew and I can get with them and confer and get an answer to that. But if we approve the Brockville, and basically, what I'm hearing is, your recommendation is that we have an alternate top product, or I don't know what you call it. What, fill? You'd have an alternate infill that may or may not be Brockville. Is that what I'm hearing? And your recommendation would be approve the infill alternate if that alternate could be natural pool and not Brockville. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
And, you know, the other thing was that there was an interest in going and looking at other, you know, looking at facilities. So your options are to table, to approve, or reject.
Or send me to Colorado Springs.
But what I will tell you is you can't approve anything other than Sprint Turf. I mean, I do know that much. You can't approve another one of those bids other than Sprint Turf, because Sprint Turf is the lowest bid, and there's nothing to say they're not qualified to do the job. So,
I guess my question would be, if we table and then you go out to OML and talk to them so that we can come back and make the correct decision on, do we need to approve alternate
I
one?
wouldn't table, if it were me, if I were to advise you, I would make your recommendation. And then we'll find out the answer to that. And if we can't substitute the natural cool for the Brock fill on the infill, or vice versa, no, I said that right. If we can't do that, then I will make that as part of the recommendation at City Council.
Yeah, to 80.
I'm ready to move forward.
You ready?
Ready.
So there's basically
5.
1, 2, 3. If you do the things we've talked about today, you've got the base bid, contingency, logos, infill, and drainage.
And I have that number coming at 1,668,275. If I added that correctly. And 75 cents.
What was the actual drainage number?
51,510.
I get 168,376.
Okay, we're not on.
I didn't use any decimals. So, what did you get?
I got one. No, I got 1,668.
That's what I said, didn't I?
Oh, that's what I said. Okay. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're good. I thought you said 1,668.
1,668,376 for the base, contingency, logos, and infill. And I think you
And
should,
Brock.
and drainage. I said infill, I didn't say Brock.
Sorry, infill.
Should infill and drainage.
The infill alternate.
Infill. So that would still fall under our 1.7
So,
that we have available if we use the parking lot money.
and you acknowledge that by making this recommendation, you will not do a parking lot.
And what was it gonna be, asphalt?
Well, for the last 5 years,
We
it was going to be
budgeted
done.
140. We budgeted 140, but we haven't increased that budget amount to fiber asphalt.
About 5 years.
Brass.
It is asphalt, yeah. But you probably wouldn't have been able to afford chip seal.
Yeah, I'd rather have the fields than asphalt.
We budgeted it next year.
So,
Another year.
so we will have to come back with a budget amendment for you guys. And so we would get that ready, assuming, there's no reason they shouldn't approve this, but you know we'll have to
Yes.
vote.
Two votes.
But somebody want me to write it down so you can read it? Or does somebody have it to make the motion?
Oh, come on.
I can give it a shot, but it'll probably be wrong, so.
As long as our attorney allows me to correct you as you go, you'll be all right.
All right.
Probably state the amount for each of the ads.
Okay. So motion to approve total bid for $1,295,315, contingency of $64,376, alternate 4 for college softball logos for $34,170, and alternate 5 for upside drainage outfields, $51,510.
I think that's right.
A second.
Roll call, please.
Sherman,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Tucker,
Yes.